think it's fair to say that there has been a growing frustration with a lot of alternative subcultures and styles online. Whether it's a discourse surrounding Shein and Temu's use when it comes to styles like punk and goth, or even just the tirade of poser accusations leveled at strangers online. Now more than ever, it seems like communities are starting to close rank and are becoming increasingly more hostile to those who are considered new to the style or subculture. But one topic that has been gaining viral attention as well as a big discussion is the e-girlification of goth. Predominantly women who are claiming to be goth, wearing and doing the bare minimum, using goth as a way to sell a fantasy to men online. And this in turn causing a lot of reactionary content and commentary, which at times veers on the uneducated and just downright misogynistic. Discussions going from fair and productive to just unpleasant. And in an age where we have alt-right goth grifters such as Jake Monroe, I want to take a look at some of the criticism surrounding the e-goth aesthetic, the e-goth issue, and I want to try and debunk some of the more misogynistic and misinformed claims, whilst also giving fair space for people's genuine criticism. Despite the topic itself being about goth, the issue itself is not black or white. Due to the nuances of it, it does require an open mind and a steady hand. So as always, please stay respectful in the comments. Feel free to correct me if you feel that I've missed anything or left something out that you think is important. And I guess let's talk about the new era of the e-goth. This video is sponsored by Raycon. So as you may or may not have experienced firsthand, it has been hot recently. It is currently 12 o'clock at night and it is still 25 degrees Celsius in my office. It was 35 degrees earlier in the day. It is boiling hot. Back-to-back heat waves and humidity have had every single British person migrating into beer gardens, backyards, and local parks. And of course, when there's a shirtless football fan with a can of lager, you know that barbecue season isn't far behind. But thankfully, today's video sponsor Raycon has the summer season covered with their essential open earbuds. These earbuds are ideal for traveling light on hot summer days or even if you're going abroad, as they offer 8 hours of playtime as well as an additional 36 hours of battery with their compact charging case, meaning that you can chill out with your favorite music or podcast interruption free.
Raycon in Japan?
I personally always just keep these chilling in the bottom of my bag, ready to be used on a day out. And as for sound, not only do these earbuds offer great sound quality, but their lightweight open ear design also allows you to stay aware of your surroundings, meaning that you can chill at the airport or on your train while still being able to hear any important announcements. Or if you're walking home from a day out at the beach, you still get great audio and the security of staying safe by being aware of your surroundings. I've personally found these earbuds great when traveling, and my girlfriend has borrowed these on multiple occasions for when she goes for runs. The hook design keeps them secure, whilst the open ear design keeps them safe. The essential open earbuds are a great option for everyday listening, especially as we spend more time outside this upcoming summer season. So click the link in the description below or go to buyraycon.com/addyopen to get 20% off. A big thank you to Raycon for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to the video. So goth, as both a subculture and a style, has a few different origins attributed to it. Gothic architecture can be attributed all the way back to 1144 AD, with a French monastery called the Basilica of St. Denis being widely considered one of the first pieces of Gothic architecture, a rebellion against the popular and commonplace Byzantine style, whilst the fashion of goth more so started in the late 1800s to early 1900s. Some attribute the death of Queen Victoria's husband as being part of the core black aesthetic commonly seen within goth, because originally black mourning attire, something that you'd wear after the death of a loved one, would only typically be worn by those who were very wealthy or royal. However, upon the death of Prince Albert, Victoria continued to wear her black mourning attire every day for the rest of her life, which inadvertently turned the tides of how black was used within fashion for everyone, with every social class starting to wear black mourning clothes, and the production of such clothes becoming commonplace with many brands of the time. And unsurprisingly, this also coincided with the popularity of dark fiction, horror novellas, stories such as Bram Stoker's Dracula, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and of course the mother of Gothic fiction, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Mary Shelley herself being an incredible writer, as well as a goth icon before the subculture that we know even really started. And TV shows featuring goth iconography and characters began to become more commonplace too, with the original Addams Family and the Munsters both starting to air in 1964. Speaking of which, modern goth subculture and style came out in the 1970s, coinciding with other alternative subcultures such as punk, encompassing a lot of the same anti-establishment and anti-conformity rhetoric as the punk movement. And of course, as I'm sure you've heard before, music was a core core part of the origins of modern goth, with bands like Bauhaus, The Damned, The Cure, and Sisters of Mercy being some that were considered classically goth. However, independent styles and sub-styles became more visible in the late 80s to 90s, partially thanks to the increased visibility of television and cinema, as well as just the general popularity of the aforementioned punk and music movements, with the fashion taking inspiration from elements of punk, as well as the mourning fashion of the 1800s and their Edwardian silhouettes. And of course stuff like Catholic iconography as well, and religion, and things that would allude to the afterlife were also commonly included, so crucifixes, rosaries, all these kind of angel and devil elements would also creep their way in. And a few of the styles of this time include trad goth, mall goth, and cyber goth. And inevitably, reality television began to take notice of this goth fashion and subculture movement, with the Jenny Jones show Makeover My Outrageous Teen airing in 1995, showcasing a variety of teenagers who were involved in the goth and punk subcultures. But to be clear, this show was not in favour of goth fashion, goth subcultures, styles, or music, but more so held it up as something to be laughed at. Parents taken in by this new age satanic panic, worrying that their kids wearing black eyeliner or listening to Marilyn Manson was somehow going to make them into a criminal. You'd even have adult audience members standing up and heckling these teenagers, these young women at times.
These three over here, they don't look that bad, but the four over here, you look like a bunch of freaks, man. You with the you look like a freaking peacock.
And this stigma around goth and the music within it only worsened in 1999 due to the horrors of Columbine. You see, the two shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, were self-appointed members of what they called the Trenchcoat Mafia, which was literally just a club of those two guys. Like, it was just those two involved in it. It wasn't an actual organised group. And due to this, reporters linked the boys wearing black trench coats to being part of the gothic fashion subculture, as well as people who were fans of the popular artist at the time, Marilyn Manson.
They like to live on the fringe of society, wearing dark makeup and clothes, listening to alternative music like Marilyn Manson. They are known as Gothics or Goths. But in the wake of the massacre in Columbine High, this underground youth movement is being viewed as something much more than just a fashion statement. Several school districts in the Denver area are banning students from wearing goth-like trench coats, and kids told us that police are rounding up some gothic teens. This young man's friend was brought in for questioning.
One of my friends gets arrested off the street for wearing a black trench coat, walking down the street for doing nothing wrong.
So far, there is no proof the two suspects in the Columbine High massacre, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, considered themselves Gothics.
Suddenly, goth kids who would wear trench coats or even just enjoyed things that were outwardly more dark, or even just eyeliner and colourful hair, were starting to be shunned and heckled in their places of education, getting reported to their school as a potential threat. The trench coat, for a period of time, became a symbol of fear and resentment in many American schools, meaning that many alternative and goth kids at the time faced increased hostility and isolation because of it, which ironically probably is more likely to cause actions that you don't want to happen, because the person that you're isolating and judging based off of their appearance feels like no matter what they do or wear, they're going to be hated, and that's the exact same mindset that can breed dangerous levels of resentment. On a Reddit thread discussing elder goths' experience of being goth post-Columbine, many expressed how difficult life became, being unfairly reported to their schools, being harassed by other kids, and even in worst case situations, being kicked out of education. To be honest, it seems like much of the harassment was equal parts from kids as it was from adults. And equally, here in the UK, goth still wasn't seen as a positive either. Shows like Snog, Marry and Avoid often showcased alternative people trying to prove that making them look more conservative and more socially acceptable would make them more attractive, using the three categories as mentioned in the title, Snog, Marry and Avoid, as a way for the general public to rate the before and after of the makeover. And yeah, it is as mean-spirited as it sounds. And in August of 2007, the brutal murder of 20-year-old Sophie Lancaster and the brutal attack on her boyfriend, which was an attempted murder, really hammered home that being alternative and being gothic was still a risk. And in response, the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, which is a UK-based charity, was made in honour of Sophie. The foundation strives to stamp out prejudice, hatred and intolerance everywhere through education and advocacy. And to be clear, Sophie's story is one that many alternative communities here in the UK grew up knowing. I remember hearing about it when I was growing up, and I do genuinely believe that what happened to Sophie was part of the reason that my dad was at times quite kind of negative about how I like to dress, not out of fear of me being silly or looking silly, but because he was genuinely worried that people would try and hurt me if I looked different. And to this day, he still worries. He still tells me to be safe and to be sensible because I look like a target. And to be clear, the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is a great charity and one that feels pertinent to this video specifically due to its advocacy for people standing out. And so if you do have anything spare to donate and you'd like to give money to a good cause, I would highly recommend checking out the Sophie Lancaster Foundation because they do some fantastic work. For me, I personally loved gothic fashion ever since I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. I begged my mum to buy me things like punky fish and black clothing, and I even had a pair of pajamas that I begged to have, which was like red with black skulls on it, and I wore them to death. I was so determined to look like these amazing women draped in black, and my mum even somehow went out of her way to find these really cool like anime t-shirts. Mind you, this was like back in like the early 2000s-ish, like this would have been maybe 2007 that she was doing this, maybe earlier, but she managed to find these two kind of like t-shirts with anime girls on them, and there was one that was kind of green and black themed and one that was red and black themed, and I remember them so vividly because I thought they were the coolest thing ever. And my mum supporting me that way and buying me these things and allowing me to experiment with my fashion really made me feel like myself. To me, dressing in a way that was so outwardly different made me feel like myself even before I hit being a teenager. Like, since I was a kid, something about looking different and making myself look the way that made me feel good made me feel good. And to this day, I have no idea where she got those t-shirts. I wish I could find a picture of them online. Like, I do not know where she got them. She doesn't know where she got them from either. So like, they are lost to time, but if I can find a picture, I will put it on screen. But I don't think I have a picture of the front of the t-shirts, annoyingly. And so when I started secondary school, I was actually, surprisingly, popular for like 2 weeks. That was until we took a school trip to France where we were allowed to wear our own clothing, and quite quickly the kids around me realised that I wasn't wearing Topshop or Dorothy Perkins or H&M. I was wearing a black Jack Skellington t-shirt, black skinny jeans, these cool little like dangly earrings with little skulls on them. It was very, very, very minor, but it was still enough to stand out compared to what everybody else was wearing. And when they confronted me and asked, hey, are you a goth? I completely innocently was just like, yeah, I am. And I remember the look of awkwardness and disappointment spreading over their face and realising, oh yeah, okay, I don't think I'm going to be friends with these people much longer. And indeed I wasn't. I became incredibly unpopular and disliked and bullied because that's how those things go. But again, even just having the label of goth or being alternative or emo back when I was younger didn't come without any kind of cost. Like, it wasn't popular or trendy or cool. It was still a choice to reject what people liked and do something that made you stand out. Now, obviously, admittedly, I wasn't goth in the most important ways of being goth, which are the politics and the music, because at the time I first started loving it, I was a child. But again, I really did feel like myself, not looking like everyone else. Like, I felt good looking different, and I wanted to dye my hair black ever since I was a child. And at 16, on the day I turned 16, I dyed my hair black in my friend's bathroom because my mum said as soon as I turn 16 I can dye my hair black, and that's literally what I did on my birthday. As soon as I turned 16 I dyed my hair black, and I have been dyeing my hair black for over 10 years. So, you know, it does stick. Like, for some people it's not a phase. For me, it wasn't a phase. It was just kind of part, I guess, of my style and kind of self-evolution a little bit. And I'm proud that I never stopped dressing the way that I wanted to dress, despite how often people tried to make me feel bad for doing so. I did not have an easy time in school, as many alternative kids didn't. And so the fact that I have so many pictures of me going through school in emo, like full emo fringe, razor cut at home, with loads of candy bracelets, heavy makeup, terrible heavy makeup, but heavy makeup. Someone said I look like Michael Kovac in one of those pictures, haunting but not incorrect. But like, I stuck to it, even though looking back, sometimes I did look rough. I'm glad I stuck to it, and I'm glad I stayed myself. And I think I was very, very lucky to have parents who, even if they worried at times, were generally very supportive of me just being me. I think for many people whose interest and exploration of alternative or gothic fashion has started more recently, it's very easy to forget the adversity that many before you faced for looking the same way. The accessibility to looking alternative was nowhere near as cheap or as accessible as it is today. People were upcycling items from their local thrift store with Rit dye and a dream. And like I said before, there was literally only one shop in my entire area that sold anything remotely alternative, and it was really expensive, to be honest. And that was Third Eye in Canterbury. Deep cut. Anybody been to Third Eye in Canterbury? Does it still smell of spice and weed? Let me know. But that was the shop that I would go to for like all the alternatives. There was nowhere else in my area growing up. There was nothing. And of course, it wasn't really socially acceptable to leave the house looking like the extra from a horror movie. And yet now when I go into the city, I am never the only alternative person out and about. Even during the daytime, I have seen trad goths, I've seen e-kids with their candy bracelets, I've seen cosplayers, I've seen girls in JIK, I've seen people in EGL fashion. People in alternative styles is so much more common than it used to be, and especially going into a big city, having grown up in a tiny village and then commuting into like a small city for school. It's such a massive jump in culture shock, I suppose, for me, because all of a sudden alternative people are everywhere and it's just kind of commonplace. And I do understand the frustration of many netizens when they feel like the bar for entry to a subculture is in hell, partially due to the performative and fast-paced trend nature of social media, encouraging people to consume quick and then dump it as soon as it's considered cringe. It does feel like a kick in the teeth seeing people wearing Shein and Temu and then mansplaining or gatekeeping a subculture that they've literally just purchased their way into. It is an insane thing that is happening in a lot of different subcultures at the minute. No one enjoys having somebody younger than them or clearly less experienced acting like Billy Big Balls. Like, it is just embarrassing having a child try and talk down to you on a style that you know they have just gotten into and seen on Pinterest. And I feel like this same frustration is also what fuels a lot of people's resentment and frustration when it comes to e-goth women on the internet. Creators who stack up millions of followers in a very short amount of time by wearing and by doing the most minimally gothic thing possible. Doing thirst traps or inherently sexual things in order to gain people's attention. Being the stereotype of a goth mummy. Oftentimes just wearing pale foundation, having black hair dye, black lipstick, winged eyeliner, and a tight-fitting t-shirt and a very short skirt. And again, most of this often being purchased from Amazon and Shein and Temu as well. Like, a lot of the items can just be found on Amazon, and sure, there's an argument to everything's fast fashion under capitalism. If you wear it enough, is it fast fashion anymore? Like, if you're buying to use to death, is it fast fashion anymore? There are these conversations, I know, but like, there is something that does put a bad taste in many people's mouths when you see people who are obviously earning a good chunk of change from this aesthetic continually pay into a system that is actively taking advantage of very, very impoverished working class people in third world countries. Like the money doesn't seem to be going to the right places despite the money being earned. And all of this being whilst others within that same subculture are experiencing things like racism, harassment, sexism and misogyny, or just outright fetishization just due to being goth. Although for many this idea of goth being hot feels like a very new phenomena, I would argue that it has actually been a trend for decades, albeit through different media. Good looking or hot goth women began to appear on television around the 50s, with Naomi's character, Vampira. Inspired by the drawings of Morticia Addams, Vampira had a heavily emphasized hourglass figure draped in a long, low-cut black gown. Her hair was curled and deep black, and her makeup was significantly more edgy compared to popular makeup styles of the time. And of course, not long after, we had multiple different adaptations of the iconic Morticia Addams hitting both the cinema and television screen. And my god, in the 80s, we had the introduction of Elvira, a sass-mouthed and big-breasted mistress of the dark, having not only a TV series, series, but a movie too, becoming a cult horror icon large enough to warrant collaborations with brands like Monster High, as well as parodies from the likes of The Simpsons. I personally love this diva, as do many within the alternative community. But to be fair and to be transparent, a lot of Elvira's merchandise isn't too different than what we are criticizing when it comes to these modern gothic women. T-shirts with Elvira serving beer on a platter whilst in her iconic low-cut dress, and even goth bunny girl photo shoots, which again, we have now. It's kind of hard to argue to a degree that Elvira wasn't doing what these modern goth women are doing, just during a different time period. Even down to the bunny costumes, beer, and boudoir photo shoots. Again, me as a gay woman, love that. Absolute diva behavior. However, I feel like it's quite obvious that some of this marketing was to appeal to men. I feel like the beer on a platter, as much as I would wear that t-shirt because I think it's cunty, I do think it was made for the male gaze, but it was during an era where, as a celebrity, maybe there was a level of like, you can only go so far before it becomes outright pornography. I hate censoring. I hate YouTube censoring. You know what I mean. And also, let's just not forget the popularity generally of things like vampires and gothic characters. Shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, True Blood, The Craft, Ginger Snaps, Beetlejuice, and a show that I'm currently rewatching, Being Human. Many people's gay and goth awakenings as a kid were characters like Shigo from Kim Possible or Gwen from Total Drama Island. Personally, I wanted to look like Sam from Danny Phantom. And to be quite clear as well, both Shigo and Gwen, despite it being the art style, are still drawn to be very hourglass. And not to mention the use of fetish and intimate items as part of the accessorizing and costuming of modern goth looks. O-ring chokers and fishnets may be pretty commonplace now, even things that you see teenagers wearing, but these things, amongst other popular accessories, are all linked back to adult lines of work and play, coming from alternative and underground, nightclub and gathering scenes, where often the clothing is minimal and the clientele are over 18. For example, in the UK, we have Torture Gardens and Slimelight. Both are adult-only events that are nightclub, like they are just clubbing. You don't have to do anything. There's no obligation or even expectation. But if you go in there, you will see a lot of latex, a lot of very skimpy clothing. You will see a lot of everything in there. They are designed to be alternative spaces of self-expression with very little constraint on what you can and can't wear or look like. In there you will see pasties and ball gags and thongs and all sorts of things. Like, again, you're going in there with the acknowledgement that that's the kind of place you want to be in. And there's nothing wrong with that, because again, all the adults who are going in there are consenting to be around that atmosphere. I do find it shocking how quickly people want to try and remove the more adult side to subcultures such as goth, because to be clear, it's always been a part of it. These in-person spaces and communities have always been a place for people to express their sexuality and queerness in all their many forms. Many cities have their own versions of 18+ craft markets. The sanitization and infantilization of modern goth online seems to forget that one of the most rebellious things that you can do right now in an age of purity culture and conservatism is to be in control of your self-expression and sexual freedom. As someone who has finally become comfortable and felt safe enough to be openly lesbian online, I guess, I did it a while ago offline, but online especially, I have become so much more aware of how well-intentioned censorship can very quickly lead to anti-gay and anti-woman rhetoric. The pursuit of protecting the kids often just becomes a pipeline to censor anything that anyone can deem immoral or inappropriate, which, to be clear, until very recently was a lot of things such as alternative self-expression, such as queerness and different sexualities that aren't heteronormative. Trying to police adults online for doing the same thing that they were doing before Gen Z were even a concept feels a wee bit like adhering to the same system that you're allegedly trying to rebel against. At what point do we come full circle that we go so far left that we just end up right again? Weirdly in denial attitude and this bordering on purity culture that makes nuanced conversations around the modernization and e-girlification of modern goth so difficult. Because to be clear, when you're shaming adult women for the control of their autonomy, or just shaming shaming goths for having too clean of a nose contour, myself and others don't really want to listen to you or fuck with you, because even if you are right about one thing, a clock can be right twice a day. It's hard to take these criticisms in good faith when we're met with this outright refusal to acknowledge the history of many alternative subcultures not being this super clean, family-friendly, sanitized space. Because to be clear, they never were. Now, there are good criticisms to be had with this new era of goth marketing online, but trying to untangle it from the misogyny and also online ignorance of new gen fans who simply won't do the reading behind the subcultures they deem to care about can make it so hard to properly dissect and discuss. So 2 videos that I think best exemplify the issue that many people have with this e-girl goth are by the YouTube channel David Alvarezi, one of which is a video, Goth Girls Blind Date 7 Nice Guys, which funnily enough seems to have had a few variations of its thumbnail, with one marketing it as hot goths and a different one just changing it to goth and nice guys. Now, I've actually done a full 2-hour live reaction and watch through of both of these videos over on my Patreon, and so if you'd like to see my initial unfiltered honest thoughts when first watching them, then consider going and joining the otaku or oshi tiers to go and watch that, because again, it's like 2 hours long and you get access to all the other backlogged content on there too. Although for full transparency, this was filmed before I further dissected and ended up kind of coming across things that will be later mentioned in this video. But to summarize, for those who don't want to watch it, which is fair enough, this video has 4 goth adult content creators from the Goth house. These women you may have seen from the highly circulated and memed on images of these 4 goth women in a Dunkin' Donuts. And these women are screening 7 different guys to see who would make a good boyfriend or date for Pink, one of the creators. And in this video, they ask a variety of adult questions without any censorship, and even go as far as to spit in one of the guys' mouths, again without any kind of censorship, all of which is without any age gating or age verification required, or even content warning on the video too. Both of these videos are publicly available without any 18+ requirement for the account watching. Okay, it seems dumb to do it this way, but just to confirm, I'm currently logged out. I'm on an incognito window on Chrome, and I'm loading up 9 Bad Girls, Blind Date 1 Nice Guy, and it is not age gated whatsoever. And I don't think any of this guy's videos are age gated. And I will say, there are already some weird ethics around this guy, I think, using women this way. I feel like, to a degree, it feels kind of pimpy. That's my personal hot take. That's not an accusation, but yeah, like, again, let's see if this is age gated. It doesn't seem to be.
Hot goth mommy find herself.
Yeah, so this is not age gated, which again, I am not somebody who's like protect the children, but surely there has got to be a level of awareness that you are marketing adult workers very, very, very outwardly. Like, you are talking very explicit discussions around sex, and you it's not age gated at all. And I'm kind of surprised actually that like booking.com and everything was happy to sponsor this, but yeah, yeah, it's not age gated. I thought I would just kind of go on to show that, because I do think it's kind of important to make that clear. But yeah, it is not age gated. And allegedly there's also an extended version over on Patreon too, which I have no idea what can be on that personally, because I feel like I'm not prudish, but I do feel like the extent of the conversation, the language, and even just spitting in someone's mouth, like that is very much fetish mining. I do think it's surprising. Like, I don't know what else could be on the uncensored Patreon, but they advertised an uncensored extended version, so I'm not paying for that. I'm not paying for that. It does follow the same formula as the often viral and highly clipped Jubilee videos, but instead offers a lot more NSFW behavior that many may argue blurs the line about what constitutes softcore fetish content. And the other video by the same channel got renamed from 9 Goth Girls Blind Date 1 Nice Guy to 9 Bad Girls Blind Date 1 Nice Guy, with the thumbnail no longer showing any element of goth whatsoever, and instead having 2 of the women featured actually just wearing normal fashion, like just kind of like a red latex-esque dress, very normal kind of baddie fashion. And so already that's a bit of a weird one, considering that initially you said the creators were goth. We're coming on to that. And again, this video is also awash with plenty of adult behavior and stereotypes that I do think, again, would be better with some kind of content warning or age gating, due to its public nature. I do think there is a difference between promoting your adult content on your personal page, which at the end of the day is yours to manage and control, and quite often is very obviously what it is, but then promoting that same thing cross-platform on what is typically a safer platform with no content advisory whatsoever. And sure, these videos and the channel aren't caked in the outright hatred of women like the Whatever podcast. However, just like with the Whatever podcast, many of these women would not be considered the best spokespeople when talking about this subculture, and they're not there to give any kind of informed education. Just like the Whatever podcast, this video is more so just being used as cross-pollination to promote these women's independent social media pages. There is a reason why the Whatever podcast don't bring on academic women, they don't bring on professors or public speakers. They often bring on women who are there to promote their personal pages, whether that be safe for work social media, but more often not safe for work social media. That is usually what it is, and that's why when you have all of these, the Whatever podcast owned this whore, like, no, brother, you are getting a woman who is not educated on feminism, the history of economics, to talk on a topic that she's clearly just not comfortable or very aware of. And the way that she's going to articulate it is not going to be the best way of articulating it. She is not a scholar. She is not an academic in this arena. Doesn't mean that she can't have an opinion, but when you're using her opinion as fact to dunk on other women, you're clearly just punching down, because you're picking women who you knew from the get-go wouldn't be able to hold themselves in a debate. And in that sense, that's kind of why it feels similar to the Whatever podcast. You're bringing on women who are very clearly not representatives of Goth as a whole, but more so are there to cross-pollinate for themselves, and it benefits you because they make good clickbait and engagement. Like, they make good views for you, and that's why they were chosen. It's like getting Johnny Gilbert or someone like that to be the punk spokesperson. It's just, you can, but most people probably wouldn't say that's the best representation of that subculture. And in the 9 Goth Girls video, I immediately recognized one of the creators as being Dji, a TikToker that I've been aware of since around 2020 or 2021. Dji, or Destiny, is a creator who's been posting online for many, many years, specifically short-form platforms, with her main bread and butter being cosplays, thirst traps, and gamer girl content. And to be clear, she's generally inoffensive, she doesn't do anything wrong, she's doing the same thing as many women online. Although, just like many adult creators, her public page is a bit of a pipeline to her more adult spaces, but again, that is just kind of how that system works, that you do need to cross-promote. That is how the very successful women who do that kind of work benefit from it. Like, you do have to promote, you can't just suddenly rack up followers for nothing. And I also want to say that I don't doubt that Destiny genuinely does love things like anime, gaming, and all of these alternative fashions, or the hobby of cosplay. Like, I do genuinely believe she probably really enjoys it. I don't think it's fair for me to say that she doesn't. However, the goth look that she's donning is very much one of convenience and marketing, in my opinion. Only really starting to make any kind of appearance on her page in late November 2025, coinciding quite closely to the appearance and controversy of the alt bop house and similar alternative creators emerging. And her use of this aesthetic of this label is very much in line with the accusations of fetishization from many within the goth subculture, which is using that subculture and the clothing from it as a costume for profit. Dji, to my knowledge of her content, is not a goth or even alternative presenting in her day-to-day life off camera. I generally don't think it's fair to say that anyone is or isn't goth based off their outward appearance. And there are also plenty of adult workers who are goth in their day-to-day life. They do just be like that. It would be dumb to expect these women who are alternative to suddenly have to cosplay normie fashion, hide their hair, hide their tattoos, take out their piercings, and dress in a way that fits M&S fashion in order to do their adult content. Obviously, if you're an adult worker and you have raccoon striped hair or you have piercings and tattoos, you're going to keep that if you're doing adult content. You're not going to suddenly change. And again, hotness and gothness have always coexisted. However, many have argued that there is a difference between being an alternative woman who does do adult work for their job and somebody who dresses up as an alternative woman to do their adult work. It's selling a stereotyped male fantasy at the cost of a subculture that you may not even be a part of. For example, if I did adult work, I don't go asking, but if I did adult work, it would be crazy to expect me to change my hair or my fashion or my makeup or my tattoos or my piercings to do that work. That is how I feel comfortable. I look like this all the time. If I was going to do that kind of work, why would I change how I look to do it? So again, alternative women can absolutely be alternative whilst doing that line of work. However, people would understandably be upset if I then went on to label my content promoting that side of my job as being Harajuku, as being EGL fashion. If I made videos with the tagline Harajuku girls do it better and it was me kind of clapping my thighs together and pulling a face, that would make people upset. It would then start to coincide Harajuku fashion, EGL fashion, various different fashion styles with being inherently adult. I would be selling that style or that subculture as a fetish term for people who are consuming my content for personal profit. And again, I could very much still be alternative offline, but it is that very hairline boundary of whether it's okay to sell yourself and the way that you look and what you do as being part of a subculture or being under the line of that subculture. This goth content from many creators, both big and small, tends to play into stereotypes that have plagued goth women for a good long while, such as goth women being freaky in the bedroom. And these beliefs even permeated the schoolyard when I was a kid. People would assume that if you were dressed all in black, you would get off on hurting yourself, or that you would enjoy things like pain and everything else as just by proxy of you liking alternative fashion, dressing alternatively. Like, that was a pretty common thing. And so I don't doubt that those misconceptions are only amplified due to the public accessibility of social media and the algorithmic push that these videos often receive. In a world that's becoming increasingly hell-bent on having control over women's autonomy and consent, it can feel upsetting to see what is obviously an intelligent, probably very nice woman dumb herself down for what some people would call goon bait in black. Because to be clear, I do firmly believe that these are intelligent, interesting, and nice women. They kind of have to be in order to be as successful as they are. But when you are lowering yourself down for men as a paycheck, the line of morality for many gets blurred. You can personally give consent for yourself to be talked down to or submissive, but when these videos get millions of views away from a page that is clearly marketed as a fantasy for adults, that consent can start to be seen as a standard for people who dress similarly. When you're marketing your behavior as a goth fantasy, is it really any surprise that many within these subcultures and the women visible within them may not f with you? And again, I'm all for women owning their sexuality and their autonomy. I've defended it time and again, and I've even caught heat for doing so. Decriminalizing adult work just makes it safer. It doesn't encourage anyone to do something that they weren't already able to do. But I do understand the fatigue and frustration of having your style and the beliefs that come with it watered down into yet another thing that can be mass marketed to men.
Tell me, do you dream of being a vampire?
This is how we're represented. Unbelievable.
And correlating alternative fashion with behaviour behind closed doors is a slippery slope too. Sure, things like adult play have always been part of alternative subcultures, as we've covered, but not everyone who looks a certain way will play that way. Setting up the assumption that women who are gothic are automatically wanting or are signalling for a certain type of rougher intimacy feeds into the pressure that many women feel of not being vanilla, not being boring. I think it's perfectly okay for women who are dressed in black and are gorgeous and look like Morticia Adams to like missionary with the lights off if that's what they enjoy and feel safe with. Sure, might not be my thing, but at the end of the day, different strokes, different folks. But there is this assumption that goes with many goth and alternative subcultures where people do just assume you're a freak, that you are up for anything, that you're kind of this mentally ill creature to be saved. And even this marketing of nice guys, although this is admittedly being done by David, the guy who owns the channel, and not by these women specifically, feels like it feeds into these incelic hero fantasies of men that see goth women as a fantasy and not a sentient human being. That alternative women are automatically these mentally ill and fragile creatures that just require a good guy with a steady hand to fix and nurture and look after them. And I want to make one thing very crystal clear as well, because I think it needs to be said quite clearly. If men misbehave, break the law, or overstep, that is on them. I have never or will never be a "what was she wearing" kind of person. Just because you consume a certain type of content or you have a certain type of fantasy, it is still up to you and your ability to rationalize right from wrong, to understand that fantasies don't correlate to reality. Many people can healthily differentiate fantasy from reality and don't go on to act in an antisocial, criminal, or harmful way. So again, I am not blaming any creator, new or old, for the historical mistreatment and abuse of women by men. I have no doubt that these women have and do experience unwanted attention from men, and they still would even if they weren't making adult content. They would still receive the same kind of harassment and bother, even if what they made was entirely innocent. If men can sexualize a stingray giving birth, women have no hope, no matter what we do or where. It is not our fault. And I also want to make clear that I don't endorse any kind of harassment or bullying towards these women, towards Pink, because at the end of the day, that's not helping anything. Like, you're not the hero for doing that. Pinky herself has posted over on Threads about growing up alternative, as well as dealing with online harassment for being alternative. And I do feel that she is genuinely sincere in expressing that hurt when it comes to how people talk about her online, or even the fact that she's dealt with threats from people because of what she does. None of us as casual observers can understand or know the lives of these women offline. Just like how I'm Adi Harajuku online, I am just Adi offline. No one treats me like Adi Harajuku in my day-to-day life. And as such, I know how sucky it feels having criticisms from random strangers about who you are or who you must be based off of online interactions or based off of public observations. Something I always find really funny is that I've had a few people say this now, and for the longest time I was like, what the hell do they mean? But I've had people say like she like stares with like malice in her heart in public. And I've had a few people say this now, and I was like, oh my god, do I? And I ended up talking to my friend Robin when we were away at AkumaCon in Galway, and she said, you do actually do that. She was like, I've noticed this. When you spot someone wearing alternative fashion, you're looking at them and you're trying to figure out like, what are they wearing? Like, oh, is that a Named Collective hoodie? But I realized people have misread that massively as me just sneering and looking down on people at times when I look like shit myself. So I ain't one to judge, let's be clear. I have seen countless videos online pitching these women as dumb sellouts, which to be honest is reductive and misogynistic in its own right. I don't think these women are bad or evil or malicious. I don't think they're to blame for all of the issues within Goth, because again, no matter what women have worn or how they behave, they have always been objectified in any subculture, in any style. That's not a new thing. Men have always objectified women and girls. But I do also personally think that it is naive to pretend that feeding these stereotypes for your male viewers isn't going to be stepping on the toes of other women who also wear this style 24/7 and have to live with the consequences of that stereotype being fed. This content doesn't exist in a vacuum, and for as much as it shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things, that just isn't how life or the internet works. Again, women should be able to walk home at night after having 6 drinks blind drunk and get home safely. But sadly, the world isn't like that. And so yeah, it is sensible to book yourself an Uber, book yourself a cab home, have your girlfriend come pick you up. It shouldn't have to be that way. It doesn't mean it's your fault, but we live in a world where unfortunately, we do have to take on more responsibility than we should for ourselves. And in this situation, you can't pretend that the content that you're making won't have effects outside of your personal page. People, often the worst and loudest types of them, will see this content and use it as their blueprint of how to treat women who look a certain way. You can't really say fuck the man or f the system and still wear Harry Potter cosplays in the year of 2026.
Ask them, right, if they actually understand what the politics are. They say they hate the system. Ask them what that system is. They won't be able to tell you.
And again, I know it's a business move. I know that as a businesswoman myself, it is better to stay quiet on politics. Like, I know this. Like, I have lost work, no doubt, because I am a gobby loudmouth with opinions. Like, that is what happens. You don't get as much work. If you're very brand safe, you're very family safe, you don't have issue getting work. But when you are a big creator, everything said or even unsaid is a statement in itself. Kind of like how we've all noticed that many brands that used to do their tokenized rainbow flag icon for the month of June are suddenly not doing it. Yeah, it was a shitty form of advocacy, it was the crappiest way of showing support, but the fact they're not even doing that now is worrying, because we're living in a political climate where the LGBTQ plus is being actively oppressed and targeted. It is being used in political targeting. Like, I had a Reform UK leaflet come through the door and they're talking about trans women. They have more about trans women in their manifesto than they do about domestic violence rates and getting people out of poverty. Did you know? Fun fact, read manifestos, everyone. Read the manifestos. Actually sit down and take time reading the manifestos. It's bad. It's real bad. And of course, unfortunately, every video like this does go unintentionally to give ammunition to alt-right grifters like Jake Monroe, who like to create a narrative about women that simply doesn't exist, weaponizing this behavior to further his own agenda. All despite the fact that Jake Monroe actually did have his own OF account where he did play into these exact same stereotypes, just the male version. So daddy, for example, goth daddy, being his common thing. And I don't really have any doubt that if he was successful in the same way as these women with that content, he wouldn't have gone for the alt-right grift, actually. I reckon he would have just kind of stayed quiet politically and he would have just done that. But he isn't as successful as these women, and so instead he's just selling his soul to the devil for a little bit of attention online, of being the goth white nationalist. Like, Jake's content is just slop. It's complete slop off the backs of successful people. When young girls are fighting an uphill battle against ever-changing beauty standards, it can feel so unfair that what was a safe space away from those expectations has actually just been co-opted by it too. As a young girl, I looked up these images on Flickr and Google of these beautiful goth women wearing gothic Lolita in these beautiful gowns, draped in black and their veils and their long hair, and I thought, wow, I want to look like them. But I worry that young girls now who are maybe exploring these fashions and subcultures aren't going to be met with the images that I grew up seeing, but instead are going to be met with AI slop and adultified male gaze content of women. Now, I did actually have a viral video about this topic posted over on TikTok and Instagram, and it got over 1 million views on both platforms within 24 hours. And it was generally received very well, and it's clearly a hot button topic, which is also part of my reason that I kind of wanted to talk about it now. And I'm going to play that video for you in full because I've actually archived it, and I think it's necessary to show you the video in full so you have full context as to what I'm going to say next.
How do you like your donuts? I like them glazed. I like the balls. I like them cream filled. I like them long.
There is becoming a consistent issue of alternative subcultures such as goth being heavily fetishized for the male fantasy. This video here was posted by The Goth House, which, as you can imagine, is a house account dedicated around 4 adult creators who are making adult content, with the marketing of that being actively goth. And as many people within the goth community have pointed out, this just isn't it, and it's leading to people overly fetishizing a subculture which was all about rejecting conformity. Goth as we know it originates a few different ways. For example, the emphasis on black comes from Victorian mourning fashion, but of course the emphasis on music and counterculture comes more so from coinciding with the punk movement in the 70s and 80s. And I want to be clear, I have no issue with women who do adult lines of work. I have no issue with women being good looking and also being adult workers and also being alternative. But the thing is, there are many videos of these specific creators going around under the umbrella of goth, specifically on YouTube currently, where there are 2 unage-gated videos which are essentially just modified softcore content. Not only do these videos feed into the same issue that you can argue for all adult lines of work, which is patriarchal control and subservience of women, but it also feeds into the fetishization of a subculture where many people have found safety, and that in itself starts to make those spaces feel unsafe. And again, to be clear, hot goth women have always existed. We've had Elvira, Vampira, we've had a bunch of different women who are gothic, goth, who have always been hot and sexy and have played on that. But the reason why so many people have an issue with this isn't because they hate women that do adult lines of work, but because a subculture that has always been about self-empowerment and about not being palatable to mainstream society is being used as a buzzword to sell a fantasy to incels, to sell a fantasy to nerds who fetishize women. And especially when content like this is now being moved off of your personal platform, which is far more clearly signaled as adult, over to places like YouTube where it is not being age-gated, there are questions of morality when it comes to how you're behaving and the way that you're signaling this idea of goth being adjacent to freaky behavior in the bedroom, which inadvertently still feeds into this idea of shaming women into doing things in the bedroom that they maybe don't actually enjoy because they don't want to be seen as vanilla and boring. There's this expectation to live up to. But I do have a whole video on this topic coming to my YouTube soon, so if you're interested in that, I guess go and follow me there and it'll be out in a couple weeks. However, off the back of this, I saw a lot of behavior that I really didn't like in my comments, from both men who consume this type of content to the goth women who are very vocally against it. Like most nuanced discussions, it went from fair criticism, even having other adult workers chiming in in with their distaste or admiration for that content, to being rife with misinformation and name calling on both sides very quickly. That damned misogyny I mentioned earlier started to rear its ugly head. And that led me to doing something that I kind of just forgot that you can do, a lost art almost, and that's picking up the damn phone and having a chat. Me and Pink, one of the most well-known women within the Goth house and one of the main focal points from one of David's videos, ended up having a personal and private call off of the back of our publicly differing opinions, the details of which I won't share and didn't record, as ultimately it was just two girls, two women, coming together to talk like adults. But it did give me a new perspective that I feel can be very easy to forget when it comes to having a strong feeling about a subculture you love, a style you love, or even a topic that you feel strongly about. When talking to her, aside from our different feelings on the content that she posts, we're pretty similar people. We both go to local events and scenes offline, and we both have private lives that shouldn't or can't always be publicly shared. That doesn't mean that my thoughts on the content that she creates has massively changed or has completely changed. No, obviously not. I'm still making this video. But I realised it'd be very easy to do my video the way that I had originally planned, ignoring the hate that I saw from both sides by leaving the video up, or whilst using these women in my clickbait YouTube thumbnail to guarantee some level of engagement, inevitably leading to the continual churn of content slop that is squarely aimed at criticising women based purely off of observation. I would be no better than the alt-right grifters that I hate, because that is the exact same thing that they do. This is the exact same shit that Jake Monroe does. Would a Louis Theroux documentary be any good if he denounced the topic of the video without ever actually interviewing people within it or allowing himself to first immerse himself in that environment? And of course, I talk a lot about how women get treated online, both in fandom and cosplay culture. I've been a ride or die for destigmatizing sexy cosplay for a good long while, and I've even used it as a topic of my panels on multiple occasions at events. I've had my ability to defend myself stripped away both on and offline, and I've been used as a digital punching bag by people who don't know me, but honestly, if they probably spent an hour around me, would probably realise I'm just not that bad. I'm not that bad of a person. Being a public creator is absolutely a privilege, but it comes with a ridiculous amount of pressure, and I would argue more so when you're a woman, because not only is what you're saying being criticised, but who you are is being criticised, and the way you look is being criticised. You get all sorts of messages and threats that I do seriously doubt many male creators know or understand or empathise the extent on. I've had to recently restart my antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication because of the kind of compounding impact that social media has had on my already fractious mental health. I suppose I just don't want my YouTube channel to perpetuate the cycle of commenting on other people's lives as if they aren't real people affected by it. Social media platforms experience enough of this as is, and as I've said before in my lolcow and cringe culture video, I'm tired of it. Like, realistically, how many Tyler Catastrophe videos do we need? Would you be spending this much time and energy on this person if they were better looking and not queer? Yeah, they had bad opinions, no one's denying that, but the conversation very quickly moved on from their bad hot takes or their overpriced beadwork to just being malicious, posting pictures of them pre-transition, laughing at their voice, and commenting on the fact that they feel confident in how they look, which, regardless of whether you find them attractive, is really nobody's business to tear them down for. God forbid somebody doesn't think that they look horrendously ugly. God forbid. And even if my criticisms are fair and in good faith, I worry that if I haven't levied both sides equally, I'm still feeding the exact same beast that fuels hate forums. So instead of just using the caricature of these women as my focal point, removing their agency to respond whilst I speculate on them for profit, I did invite them to meet with me and speak on here, allowing themselves to be humanized and seen away from their public social media and their business. I wanted to give my audience the credit of being thoughtful, articulate, and nuanced. However, the women I did reach out to respectfully declined. They took it in good faith and they appreciated my desire to do so, but they politely declined this time. A decision I respect, even if I was a little disappointed. And I think it's a shame because I do believe seeing these women away from their pages and the content that makes them money would allow people to better humanize them, because the more time you spend with somebody, the more time you learn about them, the more you do humanize them. And I think sometimes we need to humanize people before we start using them as meme templates, before we start dedicating whole social media pages to trying to destroy their lives or learn things about them. I think that can be an incredibly soul-rotting thing to do, and it's very easy to fall into that because it's passed off as meme culture, it's passed off as an internet joke, but it's very easy to do that. But ultimately this was their decision to make, and I at least hope that I have balanced my thoughts with more nuance and fairness for this video despite that. Goth has never been about looking hot or attractive to the average person. It was about unapologetic self-expression, regardless of how good or bad you were deemed to look. Sure, modern goth has definitely felt like it's been put into these weirdly rigid standards, something that I did touch on in my naturally alternative video a couple of months back. And to be clear, racism is also a big issue in the community, and also one that gets far less fanfare compared to the e-girl goth debate, when the most viewed representation of goth women are these white-passing skinny goth girls in white face paint that does have a knock-on effect elsewhere too. There are a lot of accounts that push the idea of white nationalism and conservatism as being part of goth. I'm a Republican goth, wrongly co-opting the black garments and white makeup of trad goth as part of this ideal. But to be clear, goth has always been about intersectionality and equity, even if historically there have always been those within it that have tried to push their own agenda. And I hope this video has inspired some who maybe have talked about the e-girl goth issue to also speak up about the issue with racism and alt-right nationalism within goth too, and give it more visibility in the same way they have with these women. It worries me that the only viral posts or videos about goth or alternative subcultures are reporting on stories like the sold-out goth girl spit energy drink, because that is the kind of thing that will now come up when trying to look up goth. I want to see groups of goths, punks, J-fashion baddies, alternative kids at protests. I want people who are in alternative subcultures to be seen interacting with their local community, their local scene, and doing good. We do have the ability to push for good education and visibility and carve out online spaces to achieve this. We can lead the charge by being kind, critical, and empathetic both on and offline. And although I'm not a goth, I guess, I do still feel strongly about this issue, because J-fashion spaces have also experienced this. Other alternative spaces have experienced this. Styles like EGL and Fairy K have had an ongoing issue with the adult line of age play being wrongly conflated with these subcultures and styles, leading to people getting harassed in their DMs, online or in person, as well as having young people within those very safe for work communities also experiencing unwanted interactions. And when I did talk about this on my short form video, a lot of people misunderstood my criticisms with the work and the content being posted as direct personal attacks on these women and women like them, despite me at no point ever doing that. And so again, I want to state as clearly as possible, we should be able to make polite and impersonal criticisms of publicly available content without suddenly making it personal attacks towards somebody that we simply don't know. I know as a woman in content creation how unfair people's judgments of you can be online. And so again, what I'm doing here isn't slamming or name calling these women whatsoever. Any women used as examples are just examples of the content and are not being personally targeted as a evil, terrible, bad person. But I also do think as a woman who has to deal with these same nice guys online and IRL, I'm also allowed to give my opinion on these goth content creators being cross-platformed as representatives of a subculture. And although it is impossible to police and not encouraged whatsoever by these women did not encourage this behavior at all, to be crystal clear, male consumers of their content in my comments were shutting down the fair criticisms made by other women by calling these women fat, ugly, and all manner of unpleasant, nasty names. It does go to show that there is an issue when it comes to this new audience that goth is cultivating digitally, with part of that problem being the reinforcement of misogynistic language used to turn other women against each other. A woman having a criticism with another woman's work has nothing to do with her appearance, it's just a criticism of that work. If you are then going and saying, oh, you're jealous because you're fat and ugly, you're not helping anyone here. The women who are making that content aren't going to thank you and suck your knob, and equally the women that you're talking down to are actually the women that you may have had a chance with in real life. They're also goth women. So, I don't know what you're... Sorry, nice guy. What was that? What was that about being a fat bitch? So I suppose I want to leave you with some actually important things when it comes to being considered goth or being in any alternative subculture really. Firstly, get involved in your local scene. This can be by going to local clubs and pubs that offer themed nights, community nights, but these can also just be hanging out with people who have the same interests and hobbies as you and being immersed in that local community. Getting involved with communities that care about the things that you do will not only inspire you more, but will also give you a sense of community and safety. And secondly, get involved in politics. Being apolitical isn't cool. Being a fence sitter or being nonchalant isn't cool. Vote at local elections, read party manifestos instead of just using Google AI or just seeing what you've seen online, and be vocal about your beliefs on your public socials if it's safe to do so, assuming you live in a household and stuff that's safe. Go to marches, go to pride celebrations, go to protests. If you have the funds to donate to charities or GoFundMes, consider doing so. And lastly, dress how you want for you. Decentering people's opinions and expectations of how you should look is arguably the punkest thing that you can do, especially in an age of AI, Ozempic, and glass skin. But I guess, let me know down below, what do you think of this new era of e-girl goth content? What do you think of this content? Do you think that we should be more squarely aiming our criticism at the consumers of this content? What do you think of this content? Has it personally affected you in your day-to-day life, or do you think that you've always experienced a level of kind of fetishization or tokenization as somebody who is alternative? Has the recent trend change towards goth mummies made you more hesitant to be goth or be involved in alternative styles and subcultures? And of course, I guess let me know as well, what do you think is an important thing for baby bats and young alternative people to know when dipping their toes into a subculture or style? Yeah, just let me know down below. Hopefully, I mean, I know I'm still gonna get people who will willfully misunderstand this video and say, oh, you're really anti-SW worker, you're really anti-adult worker. I'm not. I've said it so many times. I've literally said it so many times historically all over my social media. I am actively not, but I feel like you're allowed, you can, I've tried to levy both sides. You can have a criticism with the type of content someone's making without wanting to put their head on a stick. That's what I try to do. I don't like the content they make. I don't think that they deserve harassment or bullying because of it either. I think in this instance, a conversation can be had. And honestly, my hope for all women is they're able to just exist without men doing this, regardless of what other women are doing. Because it's like when guys say like, yeah, all my exes used to be evil. I had like 7 evil exes. Yeah, because you're the common denominator. You're the catalyst.
Holy shit, is that Jesus Christ from the Bible?
So like, if the common denominator is you in all of your relationships going bad, you're the problem. Those women weren't crazy, you were just awful and they were reactionary. Like, you know, it's, people often do that, we're like, yeah, I can't date goth women because I had like one ex and she was crazy. Like, people do that on their own backs anyway. You gotta ask yourself, like, how much damage is it doing? Could it be doing? Like, it's the same with anything. It's the same with Belle Delphine calling what she does kawaii fashion when she's just buying baby grow onesies from like Tesco, like My Little Pony onesies and shit. Like, yeah, it sucks. Like, I had things to say about that because I was like, that's just not what that is it? I know what you're doing. Like, you are marketing to men who, you know, who want to blur a line a little bit, I fear. Doesn't mean that she's not an adult woman, but you are catering to a type of man that enjoys the visual line blurring of you looking very, very young. Doesn't mean that she's evil, doesn't mean that she's doing anything illegal, but people are allowed to feel any which way about it. That's just kind of how things work, especially when you're making a lot of money from it as well. That's the other thing. When money gets involved too, there has to be a point, right? Like, people are going to get more finicky. Like, if you're doing it for free, well, goddamn, you're just doing it for the love of the game. But when you're making a lot of money off of it, because again, from my experience and knowledge of many people who do adult work, many people that I love and respect who do adult work, there's a lot of money in it. They make some real good money that I have never ever seen in my life. And so again, you know, when that kind of money is involved, yes, criticism should absolutely be with the consumer. And it is a level of maybe don't hate the player, hate the game. But equally, would the game still exist in the same way that it does, to the same fanfare that it does, if people weren't playing it? Who knows? That's a too deep a question for today. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure this video didn't become hateful. I don't want to hear about how much you hate these women down below either. Please don't do that. Like, you might think that I'm going to be like, yeah, teehee kiki with you in the comments if you're like, yeah, such a pick-me. No, like, I'm too old for this, maybe. Maybe I'm just too old to be this black and white with things anymore, but I've just started to not care, and I do feel like the way the internet is so reactionary has made me care less about being black and white, because I'm like, I don't want to agree with any of you. I don't want to give you an inch because you're going to take a mile. You're going to take a damn mile. And of course, as always, I want to give a big big old smooch and thank you to all of my beautiful Patreon members, everybody from the casual tier all the way to otaku and oshi tiers, with our oshi tier members being Nina Hopkins, Falky Gone Missing, Lucy, Shy Raw, Harakivo, Danny16, Sweet Misery, Meryl Lyram, The Galmar, X-Lace_Zale, Cielo Armonia, Neon Ferris Wheel, Florenciaga, Cora Kitty, Shelby, Hive Angel, Onyx, Kira, Mooney, Icy Law, and Tadashi189. And of course, all of my beautiful otaku tier members who are on screen as well. A big thank you to all of you guys for supporting me and the channel. It does mean a lot. This might be the last video you see in this specific setup because I'm moving soon, but there are going to be videos up on Patreon. There is a 2-hour reaction video. There will be a Gyaru vlog coming soon as well, and obviously a preview of my next upcoming video, which should be a fun one because we're talking J fashion. Yippee! So again, look forward to that, I suppose. But obviously there's loads of content for otaku and oshi tier members that is simply not available on my public platforms. Everything from vlogs to room tours to everything in between. And I do have loads more content planned after my move, because I will have a much nicer space, nicer place, and faster internet, so I can hopefully stream again. Because this place was meant to have good internet, right? Like, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pay for the premium package. I pay for the premium package. Virgin Wi-Fi, you can munch my ass. They suck. They f***ing suck. Wi-Fi speed can eat shit here. It's been nothing but a pain. So hopefully, I'm praying the internet's fine. I haven't seen a single negative review for the internet in the area, so I'm praying, I'm begging, I'm hoping on my knees. But we can dream. And if I can stream again, that will be fun, because Twitch have been wanting me to stream for a while. They were like, hey, do you want to be a part? And I was like, yeah. And then I didn't do anything for like a year and a half. Whoops. That's on me, guys. But of course, as always, the cheapest and easiest way of supporting me and what I do is by liking the video, sharing the video, commenting on the video down below. Engaging in the comments is a really great way of showing that you enjoyed it. Hyping the video up. The hype feature is a good way of sharing it to people who maybe have never seen my channel before, because I do want to reach 350,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Please help me reach that goal. And of course, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon beside it to never miss an upload on both my shorts and my long form videos. Also, check out my Instagram and TikTok too. My Instagram has loads of cute photos. If you want to see me in like kimonos and all sorts of J fashion stuff as well, there's extra bits over there. And I do tag all of my outfits and all of the clothing I buy, so if you do want to know where I'm shopping stuff from as well, check there too. Now it's time for the end of the video outfit check and some of your amazing fan art. I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Hello. It is time for the end of the video outfit check and some of your amazing fan art. So on my head, we have good old classic, good old traditional. This is the AC/DC rag headdress. I wear this all the damn time. I do wash it, I swear. I just love this headdress. It is so comfy. It's so light. It just works for so many outfits. I do own other ones. I have a Baby the Stars Shine Bright one now, but my God, is this just convenient? You just clip and it's just plug and play. You just clip it in, it sits on your head. It's mint. It just works. Then as for necklaces, I have my Vivienne Westwood orb. This is the first one that I ever got, and she's still going strong. If you do look after your Vivienne Westwood, they shouldn't tarnish quickly, if at all. You just gotta look after them. Obviously, don't put perfume on when you're wearing it. Like, don't spray it over the top. And obviously, if you're sweaty, make sure you clean it. But like, it's all good. And then this one here I thrifted in Japan, and again it is silver. So the chain is silver and I thrifted that in London, and then the charm is from Japan and I thrifted that at Book Off. And actually, speaking of thrifted, I think the rest of the outfit is thrifted too. So this blouse is a new look blouse. I don't know from what year, but I got this on Vinted for like £3. And I just thought, again, it's nice and cute. It's a good layer. I like a good blouse like this because it's a nice layering item. You can add stuff on top or you can wear it as is. And I just think it's like nice. Like, I do just love a black sheer blouse. I just think they look good. You can dress them up, you can dress them down. I love a sheer black blouse. And then on the bottom, which I'm not sure if I prefer tucked in or not, I've got it tucked in at the minute, but I have this layered tulle skirt, and this is by Axis Femme, and I got this secondhand in Closet Child in Ikebukuro, and this was like £5. And so again, this is a really nice just layer. I used to hate long skirts. I thought they made me look really frumpy and silly and not very flattering on me. However, I have kind of become a convertee to the sheer tulle long skirt. I quite like a long skirt now. So this black kind of layered long tulle skirt, I actually really enjoy, and I think it's a nice little staple. And it makes a really cute casual outfit, just a little bit more dressy. Like, this is a really comfy casual outfit, but I still feel like it looks quite dressed up. So again, everything was thrifted. Like, this is the most expensive item outside of the jewelry. This was like 10-15 quid. This was like £3. This skirt was like £5. This was obviously bought brand new, but this was thrifted. So again, this is quite cheap as well comparatively. So yeah, Again, we love a bit of thrifting. I will see you in my next video, which is a J fashion video, I believe, if everything is scheduled as it should be. I'm very excited to do that video because I think it's a fun one. And yeah, thank you so much, hopefully, for the support on this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.